are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Are you tracking this gorilla versus 100 men thing that's going on right now? Are you tracking this at all?
I am. I was going to find a way to make a very funny pun or very funny joke in here. Like, for example, if you're Shedeur Sanders and they told you could have gone in the first round, would you have tried to fight a gorilla with 100 people and see if you won and you would be the first overall pick to the Tennessee Titans?
I personally don't think that they would win. I'm on the side of the gorilla right now.
Okay. To all the stupid, and I mean very unintelligent human beings who think that they would mess up a gorilla.
Sean's one of them. My roommate is one of them.
He's an idiot.
He is.
There are a couple of things that he said in the past, meaning Sean, like he could take on a full mature buck. He's an idiot. I've heard him say it. Like, do you realize that, like, brother, I've done this in my life. Y'all are stupid.
No, yeah, look, the gorilla thing. The gorilla generates so much force so quickly. Also, somebody like simulated what would happen in the fight, and they posted a video of it on Twitter, and the gorilla was unscathed.
Yeah, this is hand versus hand combat, correct?
There's no weapons. How are you going to do damage?
Well, so here's the thing. On Friday, my son had what they call a field day, meaning like all of the kids around, they did these events. Well, there was a thing in there like a tug of war. You think that you can take on 10 kids? You can't take on. You can't. No, that's the point that I would make. It's like you're doing tug of war against 10 kids, Joe. Listen to me now. I'm
I
like
believe you.
fighting. No. I was fighting for my godforsaken life.
Stronger than you think.
They are. Yeah, they are.
But if anything, that's countering. Is that not countering your take that the gorilla would kick the shit out of the 100?
That's my point. Like the gorilla would kill everybody. He would go 100 for 100, and he would go straight Planet of the Apes and let one of them walk away and say, just so everybody knew what happened here. Go tell your people what happened here. Are y'all so like? People are so dumb.
My whole thing with this, I don't think
you do. By the way, they got 200 million views on Twitter.
What do you mean? The
guy that posted could 100 people take a gorilla? 200 million.
Hey man, sometimes when you say stupid shit, it gets eyes. So hence the reason why this channel does so well.
Elk says 1 bear-sized duck or 10 duck-sized bears. A duck is very vicious. You can't take either one.
Yeah, a big-ass duck would be hard. 10 small bears, God.
It'd be like punting a poodle.
I think the 10
it'd be like punting. You could kill 10 ducks.
Yeah, I think pretty easily.
I mean, when you shoot them out of the sky, the way that you make sure they're killed, you break.
But the point of this question though is that they'd be bears that are the size of
it's like punting a poodle.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that hard.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard. Y'all trying to fight that one gorilla. I'm sure that Shedeur Sanders, though, Joe, getting into what we'll talk about tonight, Shedeur Sanders, Trebor Pena, the wide receiver going to Penn State, and we'll do an Alabama deep dive. But let's get into it. A guy that probably did feel like that he had a gorilla on his back, thinking that he was going to go in the top 5 picks, then especially in the first round, Shedeur Sanders falls to the 5th round. I know that you do a lot of draft coverage, and I might even go a little bit ranty on this because I know that you've been talking about it all weekend. I've heard some of your thoughts, but just for everybody here who may have missed it, your thoughts on why Shedeur Sanders fell.
Look, there's a lot of different angles and a lot of reasons why we can speculate. I think that first of all, one thing's become clear. I don't think anyone has a clear answer. I think that you're going to get different anonymous sources from different NFL teams that are going to try and pin what happened. Apparently, he had his headphones in. He was listening to music during the interview. Apparently, in one, he took a phone call and didn't hang up the phone call. Just took the phone call in the middle of the interview. He came off as entitled. He came off as disinterested. One of the things that I dug into, and I said this with Ryan on A to Z Film Room when we were trying to unpack what happened. I think that a lot of these teams during these interviews were trying to see how he, as the individual, would handle adversity, how he would handle stress, how he would handle being his own individual person, not his father's son, not a Colorado Buffalo, just Shedeur Sanders. And one of the things that I came away thinking is, when was the last time that Shedeur Sanders was yelled at by someone that wasn't his father? His father was his high school coach. I believe he actually even coached him before that. He was his coach at Jackson State. He was his coach at Colorado. Anyone who has directed anything negative towards Shedeur Sanders has been not only confronted by his father, but also attacked by Deion Sanders' Colorado supporters. I don't know when the last time Shedeur Sanders, he gets criticized all the time, but when has he personally had to face it? I think a lot of teams did not want to sign up not knowing the answer to that question. And more importantly, if they committed an early draft pick to Shedeur Sanders, the amount of negative criticism on every single talk show, like this one in particular, that would be brought up if Shedeur Sanders failed as a first-round pick or a second-round pick. The criticism would be immense, larger than any other draft bust that we've ever talked about. I don't think any team wanted to deal with any of this stuff. And I almost think that the Browns only made this pick because the owner, Jimmy Haslam, directed them to do it. So there's just too much that impacted this for us to really truly know what the main reason was.
I'm going to call bullshit, not to you, but to this. We all know.
Yeah.
We do all know. Joe, I don't mean this in a wrong way, and I'm going to get killed by some of this. Quarterbacks that get cut are cut from the cloth of the Caleb Williams, the Shedeur Sanders of the world. People do. I've told you this. If I said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. People don't like assholes. So when you have a video of him throwing an interception against Nebraska, running out there blaming his offensive line when he wasn't even touched, saying that they were the reason they lost. When your dad is your head coach in college and they forcibly are padding your stats, they refuse to run the football. Everyone wants to say that O-line was bad. O-lines are bad everywhere in the country, not just his. They did everything to boost him up, and that was the reason why people were always critical of, like, nowhere else in the world will this happen, and it wouldn't happen. Joe, you have respected journalists who are saying that teams told them that when he was in interviews that he got off of a call to take a FaceTime from somebody. What? So you have the wristwatch. You have him telling the players that entered the portal from Colorado that they were bums. You remember the whole situation where he said that he's calling people that his dad cut bums? Yep. Bro, what? By the way, there's going to be 50-plus people cut at the end of August. Those guys aren't bums. When you're on an NFL team, there's going to be 50 guys that get cut. They're not bums. Most of them are going to be better than you. Some of them are. So you going out there calling them bums is an outright joke. He isn't serious about the game. I don't think he loves football. I think Jay Glazer in the beginning of the draft, before this whole thing happened, Jay Glazer goes, listen, these NFL GMs, all of them have told me one thing. You ready? There's another category that comes out here. Do you love football? I really don't know if he loves football. I think he loves the idea of the fame of football. Now, on the field, he's done some talented things. Joe, at the same time, though, man, we only look at the highlights. There were times and situations that he was bad, that we would have killed any other quarterback that did some of the things that he did. I got more bona fide throws, in elite situations from Will Howard than I do him. And so I'm not saying that he's less talented than Will Howard. I think he is more talented on field than Will Howard is. That's not what I'm saying. Quentin Ewers, Phil. Where is the outrage with that? Where hold on now. Let's not act that Quentin Ewers does not have about the same amount of ability as Shedeur Sanders.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Quinn Ewers' film this year was bad. It was bad. It was really bad.
Against any ranked opponent, Shedeur Sanders got his ass whooped.
No, okay. I don't mind us having this conversation about Shedeur, but Quinn Ewers was not better than Shedeur Sanders this year. He wasn't. Quinn Ewers has lost.
You cannot tell me that there weren't elite moments where he made more throws than Shedeur Sanders. The Oregon game alone, and before you tell me that Shedeur did not have any weapons, I also call bullshit on your ass. He had the Heisman Trophy winner.
Okay, that I understand, but Quinn Ewers, through all the injuries that he suffered,
now that's a different thing. The injuries are a big problem.
He had none of the tools that he originally came into college with. His arm had no juice. He was not as mobile. He couldn't throw on the run as well. Is a shell of himself. I don't like the Quinn Ewers example, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. That I think it was really easy to hype up Shedeur Sanders, and it felt like a lot of times. I still like Shedeur as a prospect. I still think that he starts for the Browns, and I think he's their best shot. I think you give him a chance. But with that in mind,
I don't think he can beat out Dylan Gabriel, Joe, if I'm being honest with you.
I think he's better than Dylan Gabriel. I had a high grade on Dylan Gabriel. He was my 6th ranked quarterback this year. I had a very high grade on him. I wasn't surprised.
You know why I don't think he will? Can I tell you why I don't think that he will? Joe, he doesn't have it up here, man. See, here's what's happened. And I don't want to go down this trap, but I've seen that there's been so many excuses about, oh, well, because of his race and his confidence, nobody likes him. No, that's not what's going on here. He's an asshole. And nobody wants to call out that he's been an asshole, that he is an asshole, that he thinks he's better than people. Joe, let's not act as if that this is the first time that I've said I wouldn't draft a quarterback based off of personality. You got a video out there with Cam Ward, and Cam Ward says, when I'm Googled, I wanted to say that I'm an American football player. I don't want to say, and he's like, well, man, you don't have any other hobbies? Like they don't want to hear that shit. If they're going to give you $15 million to be the face of their franchise, they don't want to hear that shit. They don't. I don't know if he has the mental capacity that when shit goes wrong, that he doesn't start pointing the finger. I don't. Because if you're going to do it now, like you said about his being coached by his dad, how will he react if in the fourth quarter he throws an interception and he doesn't have daddy to back him up? It's a very real thing.
Okay. I think that there's two sides to this.
Okay.
I stand with what I said earlier, that I think circumstantially he hasn't faced the normal trials and tribulations that goes with trying to become an NFL quarterback, being a great college quarterback. We've literally never seen this before. We've never had a guy that has been coached all the way through by their father, and then also more importantly, their father being an NFL legend, one of the best defensive backs, one of the best athletes to ever play the game. We've never had this before. It's incredibly unique. I think that definitely affects his ability to handle adversity. I think it does. I do give Shedeur Sanders a lot of credit, though, and why I think that he is capable of doing some good things and starting for the Browns is that he still at Jackson State brought them to relevance and took a bad football program and made them competitive and competent. And he did the same thing at Colorado. He still had a lot of great plays on film.
He's 13 and 12. Don't say he brought him to relevance. He's 13 and 12.
They were awful. They were a one-win football team.
Relevant. It's not relevance.
When was the last time we ever talked about Colorado? That's relevant.
But
it's relevance.
Relevance is not being 13 and 12. Having his number retired, his dad out there.
That was a complete mistake.
It was a mistake. You know what else was a mistake?
Was stupid.
You know what else was the mistake? DeLeone telling teams that there are certain teams that we're not going to go and play for and think that you're Eli Manning.
That was also a major mistake because that put a target on his back. It's every step of the way that the way that they handled this and how outspoken they were is what set this fall up. That was what set it up. And I don't disagree. I think that his personality absolutely rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I think that there's still a good football player in there. I think that there is somebody that wants to succeed and does want to be a starting quarterback. But here's the biggest part with all of this. This is a humbling moment for him. Like, if you don't come out on top of this, you're done. Like, he's going to get cut in the preseason if he doesn't come out and realize that he can't approach this like he did when he was at Colorado. He has to realize that he is fighting to live another day now that he is a 5th-round pick on a team that already drafted a quarterback. If he gets through this and this humbles him and this completely changes his perspective and he really locks in to preparation, then he's going to have a successful career. I think that he can. But if like we're already hearing that he's on the chopping block, then he'll be in the UFL before we know it. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that because he fell so far, this is going to put his life and his career into perspective.
I see the super chat. We'll get to it. We'll get to it,
Cody.
just after the, yeah, thank you, Cody. Joe, I got to say this. I agree with you that people can change. I agree that if this does humble him, that he does have some ability, not even some ability. He has the ability to do some really good things. The problem that I have is with someone like him, I don't know if he can change. I don't. There's no way that the 5th-round pick, fine, take a flyer on a dude, right? Like, take a flyer on him, see what happens. But you do take a massive risk here. Joe, he could be in locker room problem. We don't know what he will be like in the locker room without his dad. Like, we don't. Those are things that I think people that have questions about. Look, I will tell you this. Know it for a certainty. The Saints didn't even entertain the idea. They didn't even entertain.
I believe that.
No, I somewhat.
There are a lot of teams that didn't even consider.
Joe, I basically was throwing this out there last Sunday before all this happened. Yeah. What did I tell you? The one that they're entertaining was who? Was Dart. Everybody thought I was nuts. The Saints came out and confirmed it. They're not. Joe, they don't. You cannot, if he goes into the NFL and he starts with some of the same stuff that he did at Colorado from a locker room perspective, with all due respect, someone on that team is going to take that to offense and hands would be thrown. This is not Colorado. This is not Jackson State. Even if it was, even with DeLeone, post-DeLeone of both of those teams, Joe, there will be hands thrown if you talk to some people, grown-ass men, the way that he did to his teammates. You know that, and I know that. You've been in locker rooms. Like, there's no way that you can not defend your offensive line. I mean, like, the simple fact that you threw the pick against Nebraska and you blamed everybody but yourself. I don't think the kid wants to overcome the adversity. I really don't.
I don't know if that's like completely fair to make that assumption. I get that. I think that we don't have enough exposure to know. That's my whole point, is that we don't have exposure to know how he's going to do on his own. One of the things that I had heard was that every single time that he came to an interview, he was surrounded with his whole group. He had everybody with him.
Well, in that point, you were standing right there. You posted a video. And when he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, so help me out here because I don't cover it like you do. But he basically said, if y'all want to be relevant, the only way you do that is if you draft me. Did he or did he not say that? You posted the video. I mean, like, go back and look at it.
Maybe this was somebody else who posted that.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was Ryan. But it's on there. It's on. Listen, everybody knows what I'm talking about. If we need to pull it up, we'll pull it up. If you want to be relevant, you got to draft me. And can I tell you another thing? I know from one scout said that one team that needed a quarterback didn't like the fact that he came in there and like told some teams at the combine that he wouldn't meet with them.
which again was stupid. That it was incredibly stupid that they thought that they could completely control where he landed, because by narrowing it down, they're limiting the chances to actually connect with the team. And I think that because there were so few teams that were willing to, I from the way that I kind of read this, it felt like there were two teams that were maybe considering it, and it was the Browns and the Raiders. So the Browns, like that, those are the only, and I think the Browns that have forced themselves into it. Again, I think that has them, the way that they looked on the broadcast when they called the pick in, how disinterested they looked. It felt like there was a phone call that was made, and we know that Haslam has his hands in things way more than he should, and he has negatively impacted the Browns' future. So again, I mean, their handling of that aspect of it completely screwed themselves, because he's not Anthony Richardson or Josh Allen. Like, he's not built like a mountain and can throw the ball with a rocket arm. Like, if he was like that, yeah, you can demand where you go.
Everybody wants to win. Here's the last thing I'll say before we get to Cody's super chat here. That everybody in this league wants to win.
Mm-hmm.
If he was Cam Newton, with everything that went on, he would have been the number 1 overall pick. I also don't think he's as good as everybody tries to put him up on a pedestal on. I will say this. Some of the narrative surrounding on him, Stephen A. Smith and others, about why he didn't get drafted is fucking garbage.
Well, the biggest example, the team that just drafted him, they gave a guy who had a litany of sexual assault allegations in one of the biggest contracts of all time. If you're good enough, they overlook it. The personality things, you brought up Caleb Williams, the personality things, we brought up the same shit with Caleb Williams, and he went first overall. The problem is that if you are not a top 10 pick worthy or a top 5 player at your position worthy, and you're more in the middle, you're getting dropped far, like really far, because the NFL doesn't want the baggage of a guy who's not going to elevate their team.
Joe,
we're guaranteed to.
We saw this. It's called Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, same shit.
The same shit. The
same level of quarterback, same questions on his maturity and how he handles things.
The whole TV channel, the whole TV show thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cody McGee with a massive super chat here, Joe. $50 says Shedeur draft dropped when Deion said on TV that he will play for certain teams. And just like when Nico's dad interfered about more NIL money, he went to UCLA. Parents should not get involved in the business aspect of NIL where they should play.
I agree with that. I tweeted this out, and I know you reshared it. And we brought this up when we talked about Nico at the beginning of last week. I'm telling you guys right now, if Nico has a good a good season and he re-enters the first round mix, he's not gonna get drafted. He's not. You look what they just did to Shedeur. Look what they just did to him. You think that Nico, after all that shit's gonna get drafted? No. He's gonna be on so many.
He would have to go nuts.
Boards.
He would have to go. He would have to go nuts.
Yeah.
And he would have to publicly. Well, here's a couple of things. He can't big league. Joe, last thing, swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
When you and I started in this business, there were some people in media that big leagued us.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened when they big leagued us? We got pissed off. What do you think NFL GMs and head coaches did when they got big leagued by Shedeur Sanders? Now they don't big league us anymore. Why is it? Oh, well, we're on the path for 20K subs. We're going to keep kicking everybody's ass. That's why. Don't be a human being. That's right. The point that I want to make here. All right. Joe, before we get rolling here, let's talk about our good friends over at Mellon. By the way, LSU won in a walk-off at 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, and if you could see the little streak light here, I have pin mark all down my hat. But our good friends, as you got the hat there too, our good friends over at Mellon. That's Mellon.com.
Yeah, I've been obsessed with this Mellon hat since I got it in the mail. I can't stop wearing it. It's been getting a lot warmer here in New Jersey, not as hot as Louisiana, as Blake likes to brag, but I'm sure that it was like
90 degrees this weekend. I could barely move.
It was 80 here, and that it felt great. But I needed something to wear when I was walking around, and it held up so well compared to the other cheap hats that I have that get completely messed up when I start sweating. If you want to get your own, or if you want to get one of their thermal collection hats, head on over to melon.com, melin.com, to put it to the test for yourself. You got plenty of cool designs, styles, whatever it is. They've got what you're looking for. melin.com. Melon.
By the way, Joe, I got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, no. What did I do?
Guess who led the NFL draft in draft picks?
Oh, the SEC.
So when a team goes 9-3 and I lose my godforsaken mind.
Wait, what was the split?
77, I think. Brett Cianci, our good friend Brett Cianci over at Pick Six Previews, tweeted this out. I think it was 77 SEC, 71 Big Ten, and then it was a complete drop off. I think the ACC had like 40, and then the Big 12 had like 20 or 20 something, or maybe in the low 30s.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. We know where most of the talent accumulates.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe y'all should just listen to me more often. And you know what?
That doesn't mean
I'm going to apply to be the commissioner. By the way, hold on.
Okay.
Double pause. Seattle got the biggest steal of the draft, and Nick Imwari. I don't want to hear it.
Complete. I mean, it's shocking that they were able to get him, in the history of safeties that they have is hilarious.
Biggest steal, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
All right, but you know who also got a big steal?
Penn State.
Trebor Pena, the wide receiver from Syracuse, who had an absolutely fantastic season a year ago for the Orange, went into the portal, and Joe, all the indications are that he is going to be heading to Penn State. Joe, this is a massive pickup for the Nittany Lions. They need wide receiver help. They just got it in Trebor Pena. Your thoughts?
One of the biggest talking points that we've had this entire offseason is that Penn State needs to have better weapons. And we spent time speculating, hey, how is this group going to look? How is the current group of receivers? Who emerges? Who steps up to the plate? Who can be a dynamic weapon for Drew Aller, who doesn't have anyone and just lost his best weapon in Tyler Warren? They brought in Kyron Hudson, but now adding Trebor Pena, I think, really starts to provide confidence for why we've picked Penn State to be one of the favorites to win a national title this upcoming season. Now, to be very clear here, I don't think Trebor Pena is a first-round receiver. I don't think that he is going to be a guy that is going to haul in 1,200 yards all of a sudden that he's playing with Penn State. I think that he fits well for what they need. He's a guy who's smoother than fast. He's got really nice feet coming off the line. He's also a guy that creates really well for himself after the catch. That is a player that they need. Somebody who can actually create some separation, unlike the entire group against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. That is where this pays dividends, and that is where Penn State fans should be excited that they're just getting a little bit better. Getting a little bit better is how you take yourself over the top.
It's not for me just Trebor Pena. What it is for me is you got Devontae Ross and you got Kyron Hudson.
Yep.
So my favorite player in the draft, and Tyler Warren leaves, you needed a weapon that you could throw the ball to. Joe, now with the speed that you have with Ross, with the physicality that you have with Hudson, and the smoothness now that you brought up in a really good point about Pena, you can't do what you did to Penn State a year ago. What happened to Penn State? You and I both know this. A lot of one safety high was being run. Notre Dame just did whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
They went man-to-man, put Winfrey high, didn't really matter. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they stack the box? They needed to. Joe, they got a little bit of some weapons now. To your point, I don't know if they have a bona fide number one overall guy, like a number one receiver, a guy that'll go in the first round. But Trebor Pena in my ACC rankings of receiver running backs, he was on my list. A kid coming in with 84 receptions, 941 yards, 9 receiving touchdowns. But Joey also had 17 carries and had a touchdown last year for the Syracuse Orange too. Was very versatile for them in certain situations. Joe, they've revamped their wide receiver room. Now, I don't know if any one of them scares you. Like I think Pena could. Pena's got some skins on the wall. I don't know if any one of them like, oh shit, like I don't know that. as a unit with added the run game should scare you, because now you're going to have to do something completely different to them than what you were able to do to them the last 2 seasons. Joe, name somebody. I mean, I know that Auburn got
Singleton.
No, Lambert Smith, right? When he had
Keandre Lambert Smith, who left. Yes. Yep.
Right. Okay, so Lambert Smith, that could have been a guy that they could have really utilized last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I don't put Trebor Pena in the same talking point, right? Like as someone that we have seen. Joe, he had 84 catches. I mean, he wasn't their number one, by the way. Like, he was not their number one target. Some games he was their number 3 target, I might add, because they had a really bona fide tight end, another really good wide receiver, and they would throw the ball, and I knew that they throw the ball a lot. Joe, I think that this is a massive addition because of the fact of what you did in getting Devonta Ross and getting Kyron Hudson here. It really solidifies to me. Joe, you got 4 of the 5 offensive linemen returning from Penn State. You revamped your wide receiver room. Now, the biggest weapon that you have, and Tyler Warren's gone, and I get that. But if I got primarily that offensive line that ran the football at will at moments and times that returns, I got a senior quarterback that returns. I got that running back core that returns. Joe, 0 excuses. There are no excuses anymore. You are now you become the team, whether you like it or not. If you're Penn State, you're the team that better be in that Final Four. Joe, you know me well enough by now. I'm not going to come out here and say national championship for them or bust. I don't want to do that. But Joe, it's starting to become very hard for me offensively. If you don't take a massive step, it's going to be it's going to be bad. Drew Aller, listen, there's no excuses for you. I'm not saying that you have a bona fide number one. Devonta Ross is not a scrub. Kyron Hudson's not a scrub. Trebor Pena is not a scrub. You got weapons now that will get some separation, and you got to make some elite throws this year.
I think overall the biggest part is just seeing how bad the group was last year. And like, everyone's smart enough here to understand and to know that killed him. Like, no one here is dumb enough to sit here and argue with us, and I'm sure somebody will in the comments of the segment when we post it. Well, what do you mean the receivers weren't that good last year? We had so-and-so.
They were
bad. They were one of the worst receiving cores. Actually, they were the worst receiving core out of any of the top 15 teams in the country. They had a receiving core that was reminiscent of a bottom-tier Big Ten team. It was so weird to see that. To see the best tight end in the country to go on to be a top 15 pick, have this elite running back duo, and then a bunch of randoms playing receiver. And I'm not trying to be too negative on those guys, but they have been so clearly aggressive about gearing themselves up for this upcoming year. I pay close attention to teams that understand their window, that understand the clock, understand, all right, if we're going to win a national title and we're going to defy the odds, now is the time to put all of our resources into it. We saw Michigan do it 2 years ago. And frankly, I think that not everyone really thought that Michigan had that in them to ever even reach a national title. Ohio State does it this past year. Penn State does it this year by enticing Drew Aller to come back. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton come back. And this overall rework of the receiving room and then deciding to round it out with Trebor Pena is where they finally they don't quiet the questions, Blake. I think you did a really good job of highlighting how the pressure is now on, but I feel like they're making it easier for themselves. They're actually making a point to address it instead of staying complacent and hoping that the current group of guys were going to be enough.
I'm going to try to articulate this the best way that I can.
Okay.
You got a bona fide starting quarterback return. If I would have told you, take Penn State, take the logo off of it for just a moment for me, okay? If I would have told you that you had a bona fide quarterback returning for his 3rd year or a returning starting quarterback, you have one of the most dynamic running back duos in the entire country. Mm-hmm. 4 of your 5 offensive linemen return. And by the way, you upgraded at wide receiver. how can they not? My question would be: I understand they can. I'm not saying they won't or they couldn't. How can't you be better? They got to a Final Four, regardless of who they played in the playoff or not. They got to a Final Four with that. Okay. Now, they're going to have to overcome some of these games. Oregon, Ohio State, whoever. I know we went through their schedule. I forget who all they play. I think what they got USC on the road, maybe.
No, I don't think they have.
I feel like they go out west to somebody. Oh, maybe it's UCLA. I think they go out to UCLA, regardless of what it is. They got some interesting games that are on their schedule. But Joe, take the logo away from it. I mean, you would come in here and say to yourself that they are a top 2 team in the country.
They go to UCLA, they host Oregon, but they go to Ohio State.
Okay. I mean, they got some things that they got to fix defensively. But nobody's going to come in here and convince me that it's not a massive upgrade with Pena, Ross, and Hudson. I will remind Penn State fans, Joe, when Hudson was at USC, go look this up, the 2022 year. Did you know that Kyron Hudson blocked 3 punts?
Yeah.
He blocked 3 punts.
All effort.
He is all effort. The one-handed grab against LSU was insane. You didn't have anybody that could do that for you a year ago. Drew Aller, you got weapons. You better be in the lab, and y'all better be throwing to one another ad nauseum, because this kid Pena can play. I don't look. One thing the ACC did not get wrong a year ago was the passing game. That's one thing they didn't get wrong. I mean, they threw it on anybody. I mean, ask Klubnik about Texas. You had the number 1 secondary in the country, and Cade Klubnik absolutely ate their ass alive. No pause, no lube. And that's the one thing that they got right. This kid was one of the bona fide dudes in the ACC that's now on the move. So you get him, James Franklin. I have been listen, to my own detriment. I have defended James Franklin at every turn, mainly due to the fact that I just didn't think that he was given enough. Like I'll never forget, Joe. I did a Pennsylvania radio show, ESPN, whatever. LSU dude goes to Pittsburgh, and I'm talking about him, and they're like, somehow James Franklin's name comes up. And they were and they're just saying, well, he doesn't really have the resources like the LSU. And I'm like, well, then what are you saying? Then what? Mainly due to the fact, because this was the beginning part of NIL, how a kid got here, whatever. So I'm literally just sitting there asking myself, okay, you're saying all that, and your expectations of him to win a national title is why? Now you've given him the resources. So now, like, for example, you have Fran Brown that's out there saying, I'm not giving this kid $1 million. It ain't gonna happen.
$2 million was the number. I don't think he got it.
He didn't get $2 million.
No.
I bet you got 7 digits in Penn State. I mean, there's no way. I mean, the kid's getting paid somewhere. So now you are giving him the resources. Joe, name an excuse offensively for Andy Kotelnicki.
Well, and he has done, which he needs to not get cute with things this year. And I think that one of the overall biggest takeaways too for what you just said, Miami was in the running for this, and we know that for Pena, and
you know what,
Miami has a lot of money. Yeah, they'll throw money at any problem until they get it fixed. They're able to box out Miami. I think that's significant. That's incredibly significant for the future of this Penn State team. But just in general, though, man, like for Kotelnicki, having a guy like this that he can bring in motion, scheme him the football, let him create for himself after the catch, there is a shot that he ends up being more productive at Penn State. There's a really good chance if Kotelnicki knows how to use him properly.
Well, here's what it boils down to at the end of it. Does 15 take a next step? If 15 takes a next step, they can win a national title. Got some things they got to replace defensively, but they still got a lot of pieces, so we'll see. DT on YouTube with a $10 super chat. Joe says, "Love the coverage of the Big Ten and Penn State. Thanks for everything." They call me Big Ten Blake.
No, they don't. I appreciate that. I think we do a very good job of talking both major conferences.
We talk about the Big Ten a lot. Bro, by the way, do you know that most of our headlines last year, people say we don't talk the Big Ten enough? You know, like over half of our content is Big Ten content.
Most of our most consumed actually, no, that's not true. Most of our most consumed stuff is Alabama and Georgia, and then it's Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State. And now we get some Michigan fans. Michigan fans liked me because I defended Jim Harbaugh.
Michigan fans hated me because I said you can't cheat.
Yeah, it was a bad take by you.
You can't cheat. Cheaters never win until they win the national title. All right, let's move on here. Joe, we can – hold on. Before we get to our Alabama deep dive, our good friends, my gummies that are right here, our good friends over at Cheribundi. That's cheribundi.com. Joe, tell our good friends about the gummies and all the things that our good friends over at Cheribundi is doing.
Yeah, I implore everybody to go check out Cheribundi. If you're like Blake and I, where you're super health focused, Blake's lost a ton of weight. I spend so much of my time and energy wasting money on vitamins that I don't even know are going to work, but I do know that Cheribundi works. They've got so many different types of products. They are filled with antioxidants. They're used with the best fruits and vegetables in the world. They've got natural anti-inflammatory products with incredible benefits that reduce soreness, increase recovery. They contain naturally occurring melatonin to help you improve sleep. They also help support immunity. They're used by over 500 collegiate and professional sports teams, every NFL team, 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this season had Cheribundi with them. 66 out of 67 Power 4 conference football teams, and then every NCAA and basketball national champion since 2007 used Cheribundi. Their products are available on Amazon, cheribundi.com, and at retailers nationwide. Head on over to cheribundi.com, spelled cheribundi.com, cheribundi.com. Go check it out.
I will tell you, unless you really are not intending on going to sleep, do not take the nighttime Cheribundi gummies.
I believe you, man.
I'm
still waiting to get those sent to me. I need to get mine.
Somebody might have swagger jacked you, bro.
I really think somebody did. I think somebody saw them and wanted them.
Not good. All right, Joe, we continue on the deep dives here. We've continued and started, and we'll do some of these teams again, but we're just already are doing some of them. But, Joe, pretty much post-spring here about the Alabama Crimson Tide going into it. When you look at the Alabama Crimson Tide going into the 2025 season, look, coming off of a 9-3 regular season, 9-4 in the bowl game, I think a lot was made of what happened a year ago, and we've talked about this. Post Nick Saban, oh, my God, you go 9-3, everybody, sky's falling. No, oh, my God, Alabama's no more. But they're back, and they're trying to rebuild. There was a lot of things that Alabama had to overcome. They have a new quarterback. They got a new offensive coordinator. A lot of things are overturning here. When you look at 2025 Bama, Joe DeLeone sees exactly what?
I got to be honest. I have a hard time getting a pulse for this Alabama team because we're so used to knowing that Alabama was just always going to have a competitive roster. We always knew that there was going to be some not unheralded, but some 5-star recruit that was just going to take over, that was going to step up to the plate. There was some freshman that had a big season the year prior that we knew, oh, this guy's up next. He's going to be the next first-round pick. This is going to be the next Will Anderson. He's going to be, Bryce Young is going to take him over the top. Even in their weakest times in Nick Saban's last year, they still reached the college football playoff. I feel like there's two things that I know about this team. I know that they're returning multiple starting offensive linemen, Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, who are important players. And I know that they have one of the best receivers in the country, orchestrated by Ryan Grubb, who is a brilliant offensive coordinator. And we know that Kalen DeBoer is a great offensive coach. But the uncertainties to me, I think, might hold him back because I just don't really know how this defense is going to look. Are they going to play a lot better than they did last season because they were a liability at times throughout their schedule in some of their worst games? And is the current quarterback situation enough for them to bounce back and to take a step forward from the inconsistencies of Jalen Milroe? A lot of questions, and I don't know if there is really a lot of answers.
I think you just said that perfectly. I don't know what to make of them. Now, a lot of that, I think, for me, has to do with what happens at quarterback. Because I think if you knew what you were getting at quarterback, you would feel as if a lot better of the direction of where they could go. Here is a truth. We thought that Jalen Milroe would be better than what he was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, for what it's worth, Kalen DeBoer put him in right situations. I don't. How do you have that many offensive linemen drafted and one that will be drafted next year in Caden Proctor and not be better than what you were running the football? Joe, I will tell you this. I understand that Kalen DeBoer got to a national title 2 years ago. But, Joe, they got away from running the football too much. They tried to take a quarterback that had struggled throwing the football down the field and not utilize his strengths. I know he got beat up some. I know that there were some situations. Joe, you had to go into last season running the football. I know that Jan Miller is coming back for his senior year. I understand that you have some good young guys like Richard Young, Dre Washington comes in, Daniel Hill at running back. I know that you feel like that you have a decent core. But in the league like the Big Ten and the SEC, this isn't the Pac-12. You can't throw you're not going to be in crucial situations. You're not, unless you have an elite guy at the signal caller, you got to pick up and run the football. Joe, let's go back to the 3 games that they lost. Even the 4th one in the bowl game, what did they get away from? They try to get pass happy against Oklahoma. They try to get pass happy in the second half versus Tennessee. They try to get pass happy in the second half versus Georgia. And luckily they won that game, but they almost didn't. And a young 17-year-old had to take a bomb that they threw, a Hail Mary goddamn near, and he took it to the house. You almost lost it. They got away from what should have been the identity. Offensively, I know that you bring in Isaiah Horton. I know that you bring in Cam Dewberry. You have some interesting things that you may be able to do along the offensive line. Parker Brailsford's back. Jaden Roberts is back. Formby, can he get a good start at be a good right tackle? I know that you bring in some other weapons there. You go out and get Brody Dalton, the tight end, that I know a lot of people wanted. There's a lot of pieces that you're trying to add. What does Ryan Grubb bring in as a signal call, as a play caller for you? How big of a difference is that going to be? I think it will be a big difference. But Joe, the identity got away. The identity last year got away from them. So when I look at them, there's talent all across the field for Bama. It's not like Bama doesn't have freaking talent. They got talent everywhere. You bring back Ryan Williams. You bring back Jeremy Bernard. You bring in Isaiah Horton. That could be a really damn good wide receiving core. We saw what you did 2 years ago with a damn good receiving core. That could be that. The question for me offensively, I don't know what I get in Ty Simpson. And Nick always got the benefit of the doubt there because he should have always gotten the benefit of the doubt there. But there's one other thing that I look at defensively when I look at them specifically. Joe, I see guys like LT Overton, Justin Jefferson returns, Deontay Lawson returns, Keon Sabb is there. They got pieces. Joe, they had those same pieces a year ago, and they refused to run things defensively, and it beat them. So not only offensively do I feel like that they got away from some of their identity, I felt like that the identity that defense should have had last year was not there too. Who are you? That's the thing for me for Bama. Who are you really? Because you got to flush the Saban era. You got to flush it. It was fantastic. But when you go into who are you? What is your identity? What does Bama do well? What does your team do well? Can you call plays and get guys in the area where they can make those plays? That's why I thought Bama was not a playoff team a year ago. When the going got tough, they got away from what they do best.
I think that's a really strong way to put this, is like trying to find that identity. But with some of the questions on defense, there are some aspects of this roster that I actually think have tremendous upside. I really like LT Overton. I think that he is going to be a tremendously productive pass rusher this year. I think he's going to take a step forward. We knew that he was a very gifted player when he was coming into Texas A&M as a recruit. I think that their secondary can be really underrated this season. I really believe that Alabama has a sneaky good defensive backfield. Damani Jackson, who came in from USC, Xavier Brown, both those guys were young last year. They had a lot of flashes on film. I think both are guys that could eventually be very highly drafted players when they do declare in separate seasons. And then we're also starting to hear that Dejoun Lee is lighting things up as a true freshman, the 5-star corner that they brought in.
Yeah.
So that's
your point. Our good friend Clint Lamb said he was the winner of spring. If we want to throw that, we talked about Dejoun Lee, but Clint even brought up that he might have been the winner of spring.
We're talking about getting back, or not getting back to finding the new identity for this team. One of the things that historically has made them so great, because Nick Saban was a defensive back-minded coach, is having elite secondaries. So I think that one of the first key steps for Kalen DeBoer bringing this team, maybe not to a national championship winning level in year 2, but to a college football playoff team and a team that wins college football playoff games, is if their secondary returns to that elite level of play. You look at across the conference, you're dealing with matchups, you're dealing with having to face off with quarterbacks that are potentially budding stars. If you reach the college football playoff, you're going to have to go up against Drew Aller and Cade Klubnik. You're going to have to deal with Lenora Sellers. You're going to have to deal with Arch Manning. There are going to be a lot of challenges. So having a good secondary with those 3 guys that we just mentioned, I think is a way that they start to return to form. I really like the way that question mark is starting to show some glimmers of answers for me.
So you're bringing up Dejoun Lee. Let's see what the young true freshman can bring for you. I don't want to spend a lot of time on hey, a spring camp true freshman kid.
Yes.
And, I know that Clint and others have brought him up. And look, I don't think there's anybody that covers Bama better than Clint, if I'm just being honest. He's excellent at what he does. And listen, when a guy like that puts his stamp on it, I trust the stamp, right? So I'll give him that. But you bring back Bray Hubbard, who had 3 picks last year. Okay, you got Justin Jefferson and Deontay Lawson coming back. You are replacing Jahad Campbell, who the Eagles are going to eagle, by the way, just for everybody. They constantly do it.
They also took Smile Munden, which was hilarious.
Which is freaking insane. But I look at them and say, Joe, when you look at them from a roster-to-roster standpoint, talent v. talent, again, I agree with you. Hey, man, I look at the secondary. They've done a lot of really good things. They got a lot of really good players. What was their problem a year ago? Why did they lose to Vandy?
Well, they couldn't tackle. They couldn't tackle Diego Pavia.
Well, not only could they not tackle, I remember we were talking about this during the season. They refused to make changes defensively, and they got eaten alive. That secondary didn't suck a year ago. All of these guys that we're talking about making leaps into year 2 of Kalen DeBoer, they're coming back, right? These are guys that are coming back. They were there. I do think that they have a problem play calling defensively in some areas. I do.
I agree with that.
Okay, and so you're going to have to be a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for here?
Creative, consistent.
Fair. That's fine. Creative. Joe, I look at them. I never thought I'd ever see a Bama team that didn't have a player that didn't have at least 5 sacks or more.
The defensive line is where my antenna go, my panic meter goes up. Where I'm hold on now. What's going on here?
Do you remember what happened a year ago when I said that their D-line looked like that they got cooked in that spring game? You remember that?
Yep.
You remember the outright hate that I took from Bama fans?
Well, Bama fans don't like you anyways. So.
Well, they did when I said that they were going to win. And listen, it wasn't wrong. So to your antenna point, go ahead and hit it.
Well, that was it. Is that that's the one thing that I'm kind of questioning is how good is their defensive line going to be? I mentioned that I have high hopes for LT Overton, and I think that LT Overton's going to be the anchor of that unit, but I just kind of see a bunch of names, I just don't really truly feel who's the ass kicker, who's the Christian Barmore, who is the Jonathan Allen, who is the Deron Payne, Quinnen Williams. I don't know who that is. I just don't. It's one of the more, going to come off as really critical. I'm sure I'm going to get yelled at for this. It's one of the most pedestrian-looking Alabama defensive lines that I've seen. And I don't say that meaning that they've got nobodies. It's just I don't feel like it has that same cachet. It doesn't have that same sexiness that we talk about with Alabama defensive lines. It's a new coaching regime. So things are going to go differently. But that is one thing that is completely like why I'm saying that. I'm uncertain about what happens this upcoming year because of their D-line.
To your point, Rushall got a sack last year. He did have 2 interceptions as a linebacker. Defensive line, Joe, 2.5 sacks, 2 sacks, 1 sack. Their tackles for loss, there's only one no defensive lineman last year, as I'm looking at it right now. None of them had 4 tackles for loss plus.
Exactly my point.
Right.
Exactly my point. Who's the big dog? You want to read through their schedule though before we close this out?
One last point I would make on them, if you don't mind me going.
Go ahead.
I do think they have enough talent to get to a playoff, without a doubt.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But it's going to come down to 2 things. What can Ty Simpson or Austin Mack be for you? But then secondly, Joe, if they don't start changing things up defensively, now that you're going into year 2 and teams have had a full off season to go against you, you're going to get your asses pieced up.
That to me, those are the 2 questions that like you kind of like lead me into my final point before the schedule. Quarterback play needs to live up to expectation of what Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer are supposed to get out of their quarterbacks. Now they get the huge benefit of having one of the best receivers to throw to. And one thing we know in college football, if you have if you have a top 5 receiver in Ryan Williams to throw to, it will solve a lot of your problems on offense.
Yeah.
A lot of times, a lot of defenses can't just completely shut down receivers. Very few defenses can do that unless you're as good as Texas's was last year.
Well, and they just double teamed him. Let's just call it what it is.
Right.
And then somebody, Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton, somebody's got to step up here. So, yeah. Right. All right. Alabama's schedule. Go at it, Joe.
They start at Florida State versus ULM versus Wisconsin at home. Bye week at Georgia. So this is where we start to get a little sticky. They host Vandy, which I'm sure that they're going to want some really brutal revenge. At Missouri, they get Tennessee at home. They go to South Carolina, which I'm sure that's going to be a night game. Bye week, home against LSU, home against Oklahoma, home against Eastern Illinois, and at Auburn. So my attention is drawn to the fact that they go to Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, and Auburn, and you're still hosting LSU, but LSU's pissed off about losing last year. So we're talking about 5 hard.
They're never going to give LSU a win at there. They're just never going to do that.
5 hard games, though, 4 shitty road games.
They come out of the gate at Florida State.
They should win that.
Should.
They'll win that.
They better.
Yeah.
They better.
They're significantly better than Florida State.
Without a doubt. There's nothing that – now, I will say this. You have not seen them. No one's seen them. Okay? You have no idea what the hell that they're going to do. You have no clue what Florida State looks like. Just if they don't beat them by 20+ and everybody freaks out, you better not do that because you have no idea what they're going to look like. And guess what? Malzahn always has Alabama's number. He could be 6-6. It won't matter. He's going to find a way to get offense going. You don't do that to yourself.
It's fair.
Regardless, I would take them to win that game. I'm going to take them to win against ULM. I'm going to take them to beat Wisconsin. Joe, Tennessee and Alabama go into Athens. I don't think either team wins there. I don't. No. I don't give a shit who you are. So I think like that's a loss. I think they get ultimate revenge on Vandy. I'm hearing some craziness out there on Pavia, by the way. Like, got his money. I don't know how much he really loves football at the current moment. I'm going to throw this your way.
Okay.
At Missouri, at South Carolina. If that South Carolina game's at home, that's a losable game. I mean, if that game's at night, that game's losable.
So to me, with that, like their season success comes down to their ability, this is why this is like a really difficult spot for Alabama this upcoming year. Them getting to a playoff comes down to them beating Missouri and South Carolina on the road, and then assuming that they don't drop any of these home games. That is where a playoff is going to hinge on that. That is a difficult variable.
Well, look, you talk about some of those home games. Like, do they want revenge versus Oklahoma? But how good or bad is Oklahoma? You do have Auburn on the road. That game's always close. I mean, look, you got Tennessee at home. What the hell is Tennessee? I mean, we have no clue. So in reference to Bama, Joe, I'll just say this. I think that you can be a playoff team. The problem it's a problem. The problem that I have as an individual is I don't know if you have an identity yet. Have you found your identity? If you find it, you make a playoff. If you haven't, you're going to be exactly back where you were. And listen, Ty Simpson couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe.
He was also a couple years younger, so I give him a little bit of grace. Jalen Milroe's incredibly physically gifted. So,
but it's just such a horrible style of what they tried to do. You should be able to beat out Jalen Milroe as a passer. If you can't beat him as a thrower,
I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I see what you mean.
All right, we'll see. Find your identity, you'll find the playoff.
I agree with that. It is going to be tough sledding, though. It's one of the harder schedules that we've looked at, and if you've got as many question marks as you do and you don't resolve most of them, it's going to be a tough
D-line thing. Your D-line thing. Everybody thinks, now look, Shane Beamer is going to do the most Shane Beamer thing. I'm a little down on South Carolina this year, but I'm not down on Lenore Sellers.
No.
I'm not down on Nick Harper. Don't play around with them. Y'all, people, now they got a lot to replace. They're replacing the biggest freak in the draft in freaking Nick Emenwari.
Right. And the amount of when I was doing evaluations, the amount of guys that South Carolina players that I was writing down that I was like, oh, this player is insanely athletically gifted. They had so many really good athletes that moved on to there's six guys that moved on to the NFL.
Kyle Kennard got drafted in the 3rd round.
Kennard, right? Demetrius Knight, Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, Nick Emenwari. That's 5 guys. That is a shitload. South Carolina preview is going to be brutal. It's a shitload.
If last year's defense would have been on this year's upcoming South Carolina offense, they would have been in playoffs.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Year too soon. All right. We'll see y'all soon.
To be determined.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back tomorrow or Tuesday. Just either one. We'll let you know. Until then, I'm Blake Ruffino. That's Joe DeLeone. Y'all have a good night. Peace.